I got to see the game's first open area in Dawnshore and explore all it had within it. I also got to see the game's prologue and character creator. I can talk about that with you, but I can't show anything, unfortunately, as of this point in time.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? F***ing pronouns! F***ing gender ambiguity! F***ing current day Californian shit! Because that's all we f***ing know! Because we're boring! We're so f***ing boring!
Yeah.
Hey, if you're a fan of this channel, you know it's not a secret. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite video game of all time, and for good reason. The levels of role-playing, freedom of choice, ability to be a jackass or a noble hero, ability to forever change the landscape of the wasteland, well-written and developed characters, excellent dialogue. It's everything I ever wanted out of a Western RPG. Now, of course, everybody knows this was a game developed during a time Obsidian had Chris Avellone on the team, someone who previously had worked on Fallout games and had a lot of experience in the writing department. He hasn't been with them for quite a while now, hence why Outer Worlds was just an okay game versus being a cult classic. Obsidian has a rich history spanning over 20 years. And I think, it's fair to say our expectations of them, especially considering some of those titles, like Knights of the Old Republic and Fallout New Vegas. But reality is quickly setting in for me, and I'm beginning to realize most of these studios exist in name alone and based off their reputation. The majority of team members do not oftentimes stay at these studios. That is rare. People move from company to company with different projects in mind, different ambitions, different goals, and oftentimes the entire team that made the games as great as they were are no longer there. Then, of course, Obsidian was purchased by Microsoft. And as we all know with Microsoft, they have a tendency to hurt and kill just about every studio they purchase. But in spite of that, hope remained for me when it came to Obsidian Entertainment. They knew they had a reputation to live up to. And so when Avowed was finally revealed to us, I was excited to hear that they were going to be tackling the Pillars of Eternity IP in the form of a Bethesda-esque open world RPG. When the game was first shown off, I was skeptical. It looked like a canceled VR game, but recent videos I've been seeing floating around brought a bit of that faith back. Admittedly, the game looks good. It does seem like they want to maintain actual role-playing elements with depth, and for all we know, it could be the RPG we've all been waiting for, but the problem is, it's releasing around the exact same time Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is releasing, and that is a Western RPG with even more depth than your average Obsidian game. I already know the comparisons are drastically going to hurt Avowed. If there's any way I know how the gaming community acts, then this comparison is most certainly going to be what weighs down the game the most. Now, SkillUp's preview of the game has given me a bit of hope back, hearing that you can indeed be an asshole to just about everybody. You do have the freedom of choice. The game has more dialogue options with more meaningful choices and doesn't repeat the same mistakes Dragon Age Veilguard made by severely stripping down and undermining the player's ability to do so. It is definitely a lot more in line with the type of role-playing game I want. And for that reason, I am going to play it. However, time we talk about the developers and the antics that's going on with them right now, because that is severely hurting the reputation of this game before it has even released, and it must be addressed. Developers of Avowed have been actively trying their hardest to cover up the fact that the game will have pronouns. And almost every single early preview, well, I don't know why I say almost, because it's basically all of them, Obsidian explicitly told early reviewers that they cannot show the character creator.
So to begin, yes, Avowed does have a character creator that looks pretty good, nothing special. Sadly, I can't show you it due to embargo restrictions, but I can show you my character.
Coincidence? I think not!
Now you're probably wondering why. The character creator is almost everything when it comes to these types of role-playing games. It's the one thing people want to see. Well, it should come as no surprise to you. That's because the character creator has pronouns in it.
Who's laughing now?
Yes, I know. The silverback gorilla was right. Only this time I'm sure he's not gonna throw a tantrum, but nonetheless, heel versus babyface was right on the money. Another game trying to normalize this silly belief that you can be any gender you want and be referred to any pronoun you want. It really, really, really stings to see Obsidian go along with such a stupid, nonsensical belief. And so much so that they'll put it into their own game. Now here's the thing. It's blatantly obvious that the reason Obsidian doesn't want people to see that is because pronouns create large controversy, and it affects video game sales and it affects the perception of games and their reception. We have countless examples of this. Obsidian knows it's not the right move to make, but nonetheless, they want to make their political stance known. They're not backing down. Anybody can be a she, he, or they. This is coming directly off the debacle known as Dragon Age Veilguard. We already had people pulling off a bath over pronouns. How that game handled being misgendered is simply a preview into the mindset of people who actually believe in pronouns. We all know it's complete bullshit, and to see it promoted in video games as a means to normalize it and make it more accepting has had the complete opposite effect. Obsidian knows this. I respect Obsidian as a studio, and in spite of this pronoun stuff, I still respect their work. But now that's quickly fading. If they would have just come out and said, hey, look, this is our character creator. Look, there's pronouns. I would have respected that a hell of a lot more than trying to cover up for it. Because when you're trying to cover up for it, you know you're doing something wrong. You know you're going to get backlash because the vast majority of humanity does not believe in this. If you're going to put pronouns in your game, stand by it, have a pair of testicles, and don't try and deceive consumers by hiding it, by telling previewers to make sure they don't show it. All I had to hear was Mr. Matty Plays say he couldn't show the character creator, and I already knew why. Obsidian didn't want to give, a specific crowd ammunition, but by trying to hide the pronouns, all they did was give them even more ammunition. Developers are now concerned and worried about how gamers will receive that, and their solution is to hide it up until release. That's deceptive, and in turn, that is going to cost you the trust of your fan base. There are many who have already made up their minds. I get that. The minute they see pronouns, they're not going to buy it. So they have a reason to be fearful. But it just goes to show you they are prioritizing their pride, no pun intended, over what will sell and work the best. Larian Studios did not shy away. They didn't hide from having pronouns in their game. Their title succeeded, was well received, and it sold insanely well. In spite of the pronouns, they didn't try to hide that. They went in with full confidence saying, we don't care. Obsidian is not giving that same attitude. And that is probably why I'm concerned. There may be other things in this game that they know is going to get a lot of backlash. And unfortunately, reviewers like Mr. Matty Plays are simply too nice about it. Nothing against Matty, but the truth is, if you want to keep your job as a game reviewer, you have to pull punches. Because game devs are very sensitive. Understandably so, they work their asses off. I will never discredit a developer and the work they put in when it comes to this. You work your entire ass off building other parts of the game, and you had nothing to do with the pronouns, and because there's pronouns in your game, now everything else you worked on is discarded. That sucks. That is an awful feeling. I think we can all relate. But the truth is, if we had $1 for every gender, we'd only have $2. Now, while I understand the stress this brings developers, and I can sympathize with that, I also believe a developer should have a spine and should be willing to accept criticism and listen to the millions upon millions of gamers who actively tell you if they don't want something in a game. But that's not what Obsidian is doing. Actually, it's the opposite, and it's quite sad. Obsidian has now gone on to start blocking people who even mention the pronouns on Twitter. Mind you, this is just one example, but as we can see here, you guys too with that pronoun crap, huh? And of course, that's followed by a block. Look, I understand. For a lot of game developers, that mental image of heel versus babyface throwing a tantrum over pronouns is probably the first thing that pops into their head when they see you comment something like this. They just assume everybody is outraging like that, when the vast majority of us are actually quite civil about it and just tell you, hey, this is ridiculous. There's no such thing as a they. It makes more sense for, trans individuals to just play as the opposite gender in a video game. But even that is met with hostility. Your only option is to accept it and say nothing. And, as a person who's a huge fan of Obsidian games, I cannot stress enough how bad having this type of attitude is. You should never find yourself in a position where you believe you must hide this from the consumers up until the point of release. And then follow it up by blocking anybody that mentions it. This is damage control. Pronoun selectors would be like the game allowing you to select your political affiliation, even though it's never mentioned or brought up or used throughout the entire game. It is such a pointless, inclusionary thing. Oh, but it gets worse, much worse. You see, the game developers over there at Obsidian, well, some of them anyway, not all, mind you, some of them are quite petty, and they don't shy away from their political stances on social media, which is exactly what happened when one dev decided to tweet how much they despise Elon as a response, and let's just say their tweet makes me even less hopeful for Avowed. I'm drawing a line. I'm rejecting any game that has pronouns in it. To which Elon Musk replies, having pronouns in a fantasy video game is utterly unacceptable. To which the Obsidian developer then replies, sickos.jpg. I want so badly to make him mad with my game, and I cannot believe it actually happened. Just wait until you see the default, you sad little shit. Anyway, Avowed comes out February 18 next year. Give it a whirl if you ain't afeared of the woke mind virus. Jesus Christ, every single wrong move made. This is not the type of tweet you want to be putting out with this kind of heat on you. Grums is the type of guy you want to be ignoring. But of course, this crowd can't help themselves. They are insanely spiteful of Elon Musk because, well, let's face it, Elon buying Twitter is part of the reason Trump won. So they resent him for that. And, of course, they had to make it over there on Blue Sky because they just had to get off Twitter, just like Yang Ye. They had to get the Yang out and away from the evil platform that no longer filters out and censors right-wing talking points. No. We must have an all-leftist only utopia where we can mass report each other. I mean, whatever. These are the actions of one developer, one person at Obsidian. They do not represent the entire team, but when the official Twitter account is blocking people who bring up pronouns alongside them trying to mask it, it's an overall bad look. This doesn't mean I'm not going to support the game. I will play it on Game Pass, but I'm afraid that this is going to only damage and hurt the game up to its launch. There are a lot of bad faith actors that are going to roll with it. I, at the very least, can see that this doesn't mean the game is dead on arrival, but this is not the type of attention and publicity you'll want following something like Dragon Age. Some developers are not smart about how they handle it. Your game can still be great, regardless of it. I still have confidence in Obsidian, but this attitude does not ooze confidence. And for someone like me, that's, concerning. I don't want to see Obsidian become a lolcow. That is the last thing on earth I want to happen. I'm not like other creators rubbing my hands together going, ooh, I can't wait for the next game to be exposed as woke. That's not what I want. Anybody who wants that doesn't actually care about video games. They care about their analytics, which mine are trash. So I'm just telling you how it is. The problem arises when these devs want to desperately get a one-up on their harshest of critics. They'll look at Grums, they'll look at Elon's tweet, and they'll bite the bait. They'll take it because that's what they want. They want you to respond to them so then they can go on to tweet about how they're under attack by Obsidian and they're trying to silence them. And people will believe it because you reinforce it by blocking and responding and trying to hide things. I only say this because I legitimately really like Obsidian. Or should I say, maybe I liked a product they made. Times are changing. For the better or for the worse, we'll find out on February. Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you so choose to. That being said, getting the hell out of here.
Fritongo sucks ass.